You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I'm joined by great Jake Crain from Crain and Company from the Daily Wire Podcast Network. How you doing, buddy?
Man, doing great. It's we're going to blink twice and it's going to be September. I'm just ready for it to get here, but doing well, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yes, and I want to blink twice. I hurry up and get here football season because obviously as an Ole Miss fan, I think that. And the expectations going into the season, this is a very big deal. And Lane Kiffin's biggest job in 2024 will be handling those expectations, right?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, look, to me, this is the biggest football season of my lifetime that I can remember regarding Ole Miss. I mean, I went back and looked, and not saying there hasn't been some important ones. There's been some fun rides and things like that, but from an expectation, a championship expectation, I'm not just talking SEC, which you got to, you kind of feel like you got to get over that one hump before you get to the next, and then they throw a 12-team playoff out here, and who the hell knows if you get into that, but. Look, it's different when you've become the hunted, and people are expecting it. This isn't, oh man, Ole Miss has to overachieve to be able to possibly win a championship, or everything's got to bounce just right for Ole Miss to be able to compete at the highest level. No, it's expected. And when you hired Lane Kiffin, you wanted this. This should not be something to shy away from. This should be embraced. And I know Lane understands that. But the hardest part, regardless of if there's huge expectations, if there's lower expectations, it's being able to get the guys to focus 1 week at a time. Nick Saban was one of the best in the world at giving you a faceless opponent. It's not about LSU. It's not about, this Arkansas game is bigger than the Furman game. No, it's about Ole Miss. The game plan will change. The identity does not. The game plan will change. The expectation does not. You play to your standard, and if they want to raise their play, that's fine. They'll get wiped regardless. So I'm happy for Ole Miss. Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of nerves out there, and there should be. But at the end of the day, you have built up this roster. You have built up this coaching staff. You have created this buzz for this moment. And I'm happy and excited to see how the Ole Miss football team reacts. So you never really know until you go out there, and that's in general. But Ole Miss being at this point could lead to Ole Miss being at this point more than just this year if they're able to cash in on it.
Yeah, and it's a situation that everybody's looking at that Georgia game that's coming up in November. And that's going to be an ABC primetime game. It's going to be potentially like the LSU-Alabama game has been in the SEC for the last several years. The question is, how does Ole Miss get to that Georgia game undefeated?
Yeah, and listen, as media members, as prognosticators, and even as fans, we have the luxury to be able to look ahead and say, man, that matchup is going to be huge, because there are games that are going to draw more than others from an outside perspective. But I go back to what I said earlier. It's not even about game one for the football team and the coaches. It's about the next weightlifting session. It's about the next time you have to go to class. But, just looking at it from our point of view, to me, it's very simple. It's been one of the reasons that Ole Miss has found himself in this position. It's one of the reasons that USC out there with Lincoln Riley, even when he was at Oklahoma, have not been able to win a championship. It's balance. I'm not talking about running and passing. I'm not talking about how many times you get into this formation. I'm not talking about, running zone or man defensively from a coverage standpoint. It is offensively, defensively, and special teams. We see this in every sport, but especially in college basketball. The teams that are able to advance in a single elimination sudden death tournament are the ones that can win in multiple ways. And what's been Ole Miss's biggest bugaboo? They've been able to score most of the time. It's been defensively being able to consistently stop people. And I think Ole Miss has gotten to the point from a personnel standpoint where the defense can win them some games this year. So how do you get to that Georgia game undefeated? Well, you beat them with balance. Offense is not always going to be clicking. I don't care what sport it is. But are you good enough in the kicking game? Are you good enough on defense? Are you good enough in the red zone to be able to win games in multiple ways? Versatility is the second best tility. The first one is fertility, because without that, none of us would be here. But the balance of this Ole Miss team, I think, is what's going to give them the best chance to be able to go not only to the Georgia game undefeated, but give them a chance to actually win this game, which it's going to be tough. And it's not going to be the end of the end if they don't win it, but they have to do it with balance. That's how you win games.
You know, you did something, heck, this might have been back when you were on the J-Boy show. You were having some sort of a Twitter beef with somebody. And you made,
me?
Yeah, you made the comment that is like, I'm not going to listen to anybody that can't draw a simple inside zone play tell me about football. And that is something that you said out loud. And I remember that over and over again. Why do you think the media can be so blissfully ignorant about the inner workings of football?
Well, and look, in the context of that, and I actually went on Locked On Auburn and debated a guy who was questioning my schematic adjustments for the Auburn-Georgia game.
I remember that.
My basic point was, okay, if we're going to talk about schematics, you've got to know the basics, right? Because and this isn't, there are people that are plumbers. There are people that are accountants. I coached college football for almost a decade, so I've been in the building, right? Like I've been in there. That was what I did for a living. So I don't expect every fan to be able to know how to draw up inside zone. But if you're going to question somebody's schematic ability or understanding of what they're seeing, you better be able to understand it at least at a basic level of what happens and what is what. And, I think from a blissful ignorance standpoint, that's the best way to put it, is that you don't know what you don't know. Like, my wife can sit over here and be like, oh man, Alabama needs to run the ball better. Well, yeah, they do. The question's not if they need to run the ball better. It's how can they run the ball better? Are they doing too much base blocking out of gap scheme? They're not able to hold where they're at, right? Or are they not coming off on the combos on zone runs? Do you have guys that are lining up in places, the running back next to the quarterback, that's putting them in a disadvantageous situation on an RPO? I think it's just because you don't know what you don't know, and it's a lot easier to sit here and get on the internet or go on a show. And look, there's a lot of guys that know more football than me. I always say I'm not the smartest, but I promise I'm not the dumbest. You're always learning. That's what's great about the game. But it's a lot easier to go on social media and say, man, Alabama sucks. Or, oh, man, Ole Miss, they can't tackle anybody. Well, yeah, that gets a lot of clicks. A lot of people will be like, heck yeah. But I'm from the school of, if I'm going to do this for a living and be in sports media, and especially when it comes to football, which I know best schematically, I need solutions, man. I need solutions. And if we're going to argue this, we've got to argue this at the granular level. But sometimes, and you can't expect sports fans to sit here and be like, oh, well, that's a trap. Well, oh, they're running two-man. There's some stuff that fans aren't going to know, but I'm not talking about them, and I don't think you asked me about them. It's sports media members that just throw these hot takes out there that can't argue it to a fault. And when you can't argue it down to the most basic form, eventually you get found out, and that upsets people. So I think it's convenience, and I think it is literally blissful ignorance, Stephen. I think that's it, because they don't know, right? And some people aren't expected to know, right? But at the end of the day, that's why I love doing what I'm doing, because whether we're live streaming a game or whether we're doing analysis of the game or whether David Cohn, one of our co-hosts, is drawing up his play of the week that he liked using his terminology, I think being able, and one of the reasons we've had success, not to be too long-winded, but it's a great question, and nobody ever asked me this. I always wanted, and one of the reasons the J-Boy show is successful and now what we're doing on Crain & Company has been successful is we have a saying, it's called win the water cooler. I want you to feel like when you listen to our show that you got to break into your favorite team's field house, Ole Miss's field house. You're sitting there having a beer with Lane Kiffin or one of the coaches, and you're talking ball, and it's trying to get you at that level to where when you go debate your friends, you sound like Albert freaking Einstein had a kid with Robert Oppenheimer. That's what I want it to sound like. So, I think it literally just falls back to blissful ignorance, Stephen. I think that's what it is.
You mentioned that. I figure the way that anybody wants to know what's going on, if you want to know if you're dealing with somebody like this, they're giving analysis about the game. And it doesn't matter who wins, your team, their team, it doesn't matter. It's whenever they're always talking about somebody losing, a mistake that they absolutely could point out and look at, but they can't tell you why the game was actually won.
Yeah.
The defense didn't play well. It's like, oh, duh, it's stuff like
Like
that.
and subscribe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and that absolutely drives me crazy. I got into doing this because I wanted to make following Ole Miss football and Ole Miss sports fun again.
Yeah.
That was my main goal. That still is my main goal. But to do that, you actually have to have a little bit of a pro fan discussion and kind of get a little bit in the weeds from time to time.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I spent a week with Alex Gibbs learning zone run with Ed Orgeron in like 2005. That's like master's level degree stuff. I can't say that on my show.
Yeah,
I can't.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it gets in the weeds. But knowing the little intricacies that they talk about, like whenever you're pressing out wide on the outside zone before you cut up, and you're doing that, and the reason why they're pressing wide is to make those defensive linemen move. The regular Joe fan can understand that a little bit.
Yep.
They can't understand the deep granular stuff, like you said earlier, about the intricacies of a simple looking play, because there is not much easier looking than an inside zone play.
That's exactly right. And again, you got to kind of, when you're in the business that we're in, you want to kind of be the Rosetta Stone, right, of communicating with the common fan, right, the average fan. That doesn't mean that they don't love football as much as I do, or that you do. That's not what I'm saying at all. I mean, there's more people that don't know the intricacies than obviously do. It's like me. I'm not handy at it. I can't really build anything. Like this is what I do best. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. But
build
what I like,
conversation.
Yeah, build conversation. There you go. I'm the Bob the Builder. We're the Bob the Builders of conversation. Can we do it? Yes, we can. All right, that's as much as I got there. But no, it's and a lot of it is terminology, right? What's the hardest part of a player transferring into a new place with a new system? It's not that everybody runs something totally different. In fact, a lot of people run basically the exact same thing. They just call it something different. You look at the nickel position on defense. Some say nickel. Some say slot corner. Some say star. Some say wolf. Some say bandit. Like once you can get the basic terminology down, it's just like learning a different language. Then you can just start to build it and build it and build it. And that's what we want to do, with our audience is, hey man, it's like the vocab word of the week. Well, what did I learn this week? Right? Like what's an overfront? All right. Easy. It's 2 5s. It's the 3 to the strength. It's the shade to the weak. And under's the exact opposite of that. So if we can teach a little bit of it, I get more gratification out of somebody messaging me saying, hey man, I was watching the game last week with my buddies and I actually knew the name of a play or a technique that happened. And that's a cool sword to wield around your buddies that don't know it. And then you can explain it. So you can't sit here and expect somebody to just impart your knowledge all at once in somebody. This isn't the Matrix. Now we'll see with Neuralink, who the hell knows how that's going to go. But no, it's a really good point. And it's kind of a slow build up to the point where now you can watch the game different. I tell our fans, listen, half the game, don't watch the ball. We're all trained to watch the ball or the puck or whatever it is. You will find out more about who is doing what and what is affecting the game by watching the line of scrimmage, right? And you can always follow the ball once the ball's in the air. So it's just little stuff like that can make the viewing experience more fun.
Yeah, and in this age of like zone read, quick spread offenses going on, it can be fun also just to watch the linebackers, because when those offenses are really going, it's really affecting the linebackers in all 4 ways. I described Lane Kiffin's offense. It tortures linebackers when it's going well.
Yeah.
They can't be right.
Yeah. It slows your feet up because again, your eyes are what matters, right? You hear the term eye discipline. Well, when you're talking about the RPO or the ability to keep the zone read, where you're watching that backside defensive end, I mean, from the exterior, from a linebacker standpoint, even interior, but from the exterior of the line of scrimmage, right? Defensive ends, jacks, you can almost know what the quarterback should have done if you realize where he is looking. Because believe it or not, you can look where the quarterback is looking at the camera angles on the RPO and zone read and stuff like that. And then they go back and show the replay and you're like, God, I can't believe the quarterback didn't keep it. The defensive end had turned up field and chased the running back with no loop help over the top from any intermediate defender. So yeah, I mean, the RPO makes it fun, man, because it really simplifies it. the RPO really simplifies everything.
Mm.
Like, and that's why I laugh. Everybody thinks Tennessee, is running this intricate system offensively. Not that it's the ABCs or the Chef Boyardee of offense, but really what they're doing is running a very basic offense that only involves counting and a split-second decision at warp speed, and it works, right? Sometimes, keeping it simple and warping the speed up, it makes everything a little bit easier and makes the product better. So it's fun watching now you get into triple option with like some of these, military schools. Then you can get wonky and get in the weeds with what they're doing a little bit. But no, the true RPO, it's fun, man.
Yeah, and I've got a little bit of age on you, but like Jamel Holloway at Oklahoma running the triple option, the true wishbone, that was poetry, man.
Oh, if you can run it, I mean, listen, when the new EA Sports game comes out, I'm going multiple. And if you can't stop the triple option, buddy, I'm going to run it down your throat. Because really, Steven, the RPO is a triple option from a not really from a blocking standpoint in what you're doing, but from where you can go with the ball. You're just doing it from the shotgun and you have the ability to pass the ball. That's the difference, because if you're running the RPO, you're threatening them at 3 different points, just like if the quarterback lined up under center, snapped the ball, faked it to the fullback, runs around the edge, right? You could have given the dive, which you got to stop first if you're going to stop triple option. Write that one down, kids. And then on the outside, the quarterback can keep it or he can pitch it. Those are 3 options. Well, think about what the RPO is, right? I'm sitting here in the gun, backs to my side. I've got my eyes up. I can hand it if I like it. I can keep it and run it as a quarterback, or I can spit it out if the exterior intermediate defender overplays, or if I see, his eyes are bad or he takes a bad step. It's kind of the same principles outside of the blocking, which somebody got real smart real quick in that.
Yeah, and what I call the Lane Kiffin triple option, he hasn't ran it very often, but every now and then he breaks it out. Option 1 is the jet sweep. Option 2 is the inside zone. Option 3 is the quarterback keeper.
Yeah. Well, Lane, to me, what makes Lane the most dangerous is he's a hybrid of all of this. Like, he's a hybrid of old school, he's a hybrid of new school, and he's a hybrid of outside of the box thinking. The thing that Lane Kiffin, to me, is one of the best in the world at, and all the best play callers are, is he is setting you up multiple points throughout the game. I'm sure there's times where Ole Miss will run a play and they'll get 3 yards, and a fan's like, man, that's the dumbest thing ever. Well, guess what? Coaches are looking at different spots, and Lane Kiffin's going to buzz up there and go, hey, man, what's that? What's that field side? What's the strength, the strong safety doing? The safety to the strength doing? All right, well, he's creeping up. Here's what's going to happen. He's calling plays to hit you 4 plays later. And when you're doing that, Petrino is another one that's incredible at it. And when you look at the combinations that he can throw at you, and him and Sark and Petrino's ability to understand the importance of the seam and the tight end and blend that with the combinations, not only, intermediate, but down the field vertically, and to be able to adjust off that, that's where the witchcraft and wizardry really comes in, and where Lane Kiffin throws the clipboard up to second the ball snapped. You wonder why he does that? Well, he set you up 2 drives ago for this one.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, we will discuss, are there any glaring weaknesses with this team? And we'll talk a little bit of spring football and around the SEC as well. But right now, I want to let you know that Gametime is the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down as it gets closer to the first pitch. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I'm going to the Detroit Tigers taking on the Tampa Bay Rays Major League game in a couple of weeks. I use the Gametime app because I could get a view of the action from where I'm sitting, because I love a sweet left-handed baseball swing. I wanted to make sure I was in the right spot to maximize that. They also have the lowest price guarantee, and they have ticket coverage in case you have job loss or anything like that. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is always guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting and screaming? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Jake Crain from Crain & Company is in the house, and we got into the weeds a little bit there, talking a little ball, but that's okay. Let's pivot back to Ole Miss. I was wondering, is there any truly glaring weaknesses of this Ole Miss football team?
Glaring, no. I mean, look, there's, you have different position groups, different rooms are better than others, but I don't think there is one spot that I look at this Ole Miss team and I'm like, this is going to be their downfall, or these guys are going to have to punch way above their weight to give Ole Miss a chance to compete. I think that's what makes this Ole Miss team dangerous, right? I mean, there's always going to be a couple holes in the ship, but it seems like whether it's through the transfer portal, whether it's through development, Ole Miss has found a way to kind of plug those and keep the ship on top of the water. So, you could sit here and point out and say, well, we got to see how the defensive line performs, against the top flight offensive lines. Well, we know that anyway. I think Ole Miss has been building to this crescendo from a personnel standpoint where it's, and again, it's the depth. That's the difference. You don't win championships with the 22 you put out there. You win championships with the 64 you put out there, and sometimes even more than that, because a football season is a battle of attrition. You stop being 100% after you're born, let alone, waiting for the season and then having to play a 12-game regular season schedule, a conference title, and then a conference title game, and then a 12-team playoff, right? Nobody's going to be healthy then. At some point, somebody important is going to go down. Now, some teams avoid the injury bug more than others, but at the end of the day, the depth is what's going to give Ole Miss a chance to continually to be able to get up every single week and play at a high level. And I think that's what they've accrued, and that's why we're having this conversation. That's why Ole Miss fans are happier than a fat kid next to a cupcake factory, because they got a chance, and this is what they've built for. So glaring weakness, no. Are there some spots where I'm interested to see how some of these new guys, whether they're younger guys that they've signed out of high school or whether they're guys from the transfer portal coming over for the first time, that I'm excited to see and have a couple questions on? Yeah, but there's a lot of teams out there that would trade their roster for what Ole Miss has. I can promise you that.
Yeah, one of the holes that I'm interested in this offseason, because they picked up Logan Diggs, who is ACL tear. He's probably not going to be even around until a playoff run at the absolutely earliest. And the rumor is that Henry Parrish is about to return to Oxford from Miami. But my question would be about Damian Martinez, the running back from Oregon State. And he is a 6 foot, 230-pound running back, ran for about 1,200 yards. I think he would be a person that would take that roster even up a level, because that not only fills a hole in depth, it also fills a role.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And he's a proven back, right? He's a guy that's not going to be overwhelmed by the moment. Does a pretty good job in ball protection and pass protection, which, you've got to be able to do multiple things, because you can't just throw when you have three guys out there, when you're going to run it, when you're going to throw it, because your tendencies are going to be glaring and defenses are going to be able to kind of pick up on what you're doing. So having a complete back like that would obviously be huge. Now, and I agree with you, Quinshon going to, leaving, that hurts. But if there's one spot where you can get away with not having maybe a top 2-round pick, it's at running back, especially in this offense. But Ole Miss, I still think, is in a really good spot and has multiple guys that can do different things. Diggs, once he gets healthy, is more of that downhill thumper, right? He's more of your gap scheme. We're going to press it. 3rd and 2, put your head down and go make somebody pay for the tackle. And then you've got other guys that can do different things. So if that's Ole Miss, if that's your biggest worry right now, then that's a high class problem, buddy. And you add Damian Martinez to it. I mean, you go get that cat. I mean, it clears it up totally. But that would not give me too much pause if I was an Ole Miss fan, because I still think that room is pretty good.
It is. Going around the Southeastern Conference, just what stories have you been talking about on Crain and Company? What stands out around the league?
Well, I mean, obviously, Kalen DeBoer going to Bama. How's that going to go year one under him? That's what everybody's talking about. You look at Georgia.
You mispronounced Ray Perkins.
Oh yeah, excuse me. Now, when I look at Georgia, if I'm Ole Miss, there's 2 teams, right? In Alabama, obviously, how talented they are, but there's 2 teams out there that really worry me about winning a national championship, and it's Georgia and Ohio State. I think those are the 2 best rosters in the country. If we're going to be honest, Ole Miss is in that top tier, but I think Georgia and Ohio State are just on another level. But as far as kind of the periphery teams, I think A&M under Elko is a little sneaky this year. I think for the first time, they're not being hyped up like this monster, and they don't have a lot of flash and sizzle. They're going to kind of get back to being gritty, being who they are, home of the 12th man, the Junction Boys, all that. I'm interested to see how Elko does year one, because I've got a lot of respect for him. Mississippi State, you guys in-state rival with Levy. That's a fun offense to be a part of. They just probably don't have the horses right now. We'll see from a recruiting standpoint how they do. And then look, got 2 new guys coming to the dance, right? Texas and Oklahoma. Jackson Arnold, I think you're going to go through the ups and downs there with him. Typically, that's what happens with young quarterbacks. But I feel like Texas is built to come in here this year and make some noise. And a lot of that is because of how talented they are up front. The game, regardless of what level it is, the NFL or Friday Night Tykes, the game is won and lost up front. It will always be won and lost up front. I would much rather be really good up front and average everywhere else than vice versa. The old saying, a great D-line can hide an average secondary, but an average D-line can expose a good secondary, and that's just the truth. So that's kind of what Auburn, year 2 under Hugh Freeze. Can Peyton Thorne make that progression and start being a little more efficient from a decision-making standpoint and an execution standpoint? Then you got Billy down there at Florida. I mean, with that schedule too, and it doesn't get any easier in 2025. Is this going to be his swan song? And same thing with Sam Pittman. They already got Calipari in basketball. So at the end of the day, they're obviously not afraid to shake things up down there now that they got the big money train rolling with Tyson and Walmart and JB Hunt and all the other quadrillionaires they got running around down there that nobody knows about. So yeah, look, the storyline is going to be awesome. No divisions, which I think is fantastic. I think it's awesome for the conference. And I can't wait to see the matchups play out.
Also, staggered kickoff times on the TV games.
Yeah,
that's an underrated thing of just having an SEC game on at every time slot at all during the day.
Yes, and thank God for YouTube TV multi-view. What a great gift. I cannot wait to be able to utilize that bad boy come full. It's kind of like back when we used to play NCAA football on Xbox and stuff, and you're like, man, it'd be so cool if you could just play people like online, or if you could do like an online Dynasty, and then they came out with it, and it was even cooler than what everybody thought. That was kind of like the adult me for YouTube TV, even though come July 19th, I'm getting that game, buddy. I already told my wife, listen, we're going to have to play a game of Let's Be Honest. All right, it's been gone for a while. I'm going to need some time.
You got to join the Locked On Ole Miss community that we're going to set up on that game.
I love it. Look, yeah. I'm telling you, there's no prisoners. All right, there are no prisoners. At the end of the day, just come see me on those sticks. I already gave you one little hint about the multiple offense.
Yeah, the question is, am I going to be an Akron guy? Am I going to be an MTSU guy?
Yeah, so we're starting an online Dynasty where you have to pick a group of 5 team. And I've already told everybody, listen, like, what am I looking at? Oh, it's a Golden Flash. I'm going to Kent State. All right, I'm taking it over. We're going all the way. I think I got JD Piquel said he's going to get like Ohio or something like that. I think Cone's going to get Bowling Green. So yeah, or he's going to get Georgia Southern. Blaine's going to get Bowling Green. So we're going to find out. I'm going to build it up, build the empire, Coach K style.
Yeah, it should be. That game needs to hurry up and get here. July 19th is going to be basically a holiday.
Oh, that's like, you make fun of the people that dress up as like Star Wars characters and like go to the movies. Like you do that, but that's like going to be me when that game comes out. Like that's 100% going to be me.
What do you got going on at Crain and Company this week?
Man, everything. We talked to Jack Pilgrim about the Kentucky basketball search today. I'm sure, by the time everybody hears this, it may be over. We'll see with Scott Drew and Dan Hurley's still out there. We're talking everything spring game, spring ball. Obviously, what just went on in college basketball and the transfer portal window that's opening up. Look, if it's relevant, we're talking about it. We have live call-ins, a live chat. We go 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning. If you can't catch it then, stays on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But love hearing from Ole Miss fans. We got a decent amount of them and probably going to get more because there's a lot of excitement there in Oxford.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jake, thank you so much, man. We got to do this again.
Dude, Steven, anytime, brother. And I'm sure I'm going to get you on once we get the season rolling and Ole Miss starts kicking ass.
Yeah, all you have to do is ask, man.
Hey, I appreciate it, buddy. Tag me in all of it.
All right, man.
All right, buddy.